Gauteng Premier David Makhura has committed to reducing unemployment in the province. He delivered the State of the Province address earlier. Makhura also highlighted the province's achievements made over the past years.
It is important that we understand that our province has come a very long way. We have particularly come along a positive trajectory of doubling the size of the economy of our province. We know the persistent problem of unemployment and the exclusion of the majority of the people from the mainstream of our economy. That notwithstanding, all surveys and research have shown that Gauteng province was on a continuous investment and real improvements in the quality of life of our people. Even in the smallest municipality, the positive trajectory of investing in infrastructure and providing basic services. There was a period in our province before 2019 where most of our municipalities were doing well. Report after report from the Quality of Life survey done by the Gauteng City region showed how municipalities were performing on various areas of basic services and various departments of our province. Those reports were showing that in the entire pre-pandemic period, we were on the up. Yes, there are persistent problems, and some of them have become much more prominent since 2019. For example, between 2015 and 2020, the economic output of Africa, which was dominated by three countries, which is Nigeria, Egypt, and South Africa, had at the back of that the significant role played by the Gauteng economy as the industrial hub of sub-Saharan Africa. We know for a fact that up to 2020, Gauteng was the 7th largest economy in our continent, constituting 35% of the GDP of South Africa. As I say, even in the most difficult time as we tackle these other problems, we must always remember that Gauteng remains the key player in our national economy and the critical contributor to the continental economy. With our growing Gauteng Together GGT 2030, which is our provincial plan, we want to cement our position both in our country and in our continent by doubling the size of our economy. Of course, it's not enough just to have GDP growth. We also want to double the number of people employed in the Gauteng economy.
All right, we're now joined via Zoom by political analyst Matlala Setlhalogile, who will speak to us further on Makhura's address, which you just got a snippet of then this afternoon. A very good afternoon to you, Matlala. Thanks so very much for joining us here on SABC News.
Afternoon, Flo, and thanks for having me there.
You're most welcome. Interestingly, David Makhura speaks about, or commits rather, to job creation and reducing unemployment. But when we listen to the State of the Nation address, the president seemed to allude to the fact that, in actual fact, government doesn't seem to have the capacity to create those jobs. It kind of seems like there's a contradiction there. How do you read this?
Flo, there's not necessarily a contradiction there. The policy framework of South Africa indicates that the role of government is to create a conducive environment for business to thrive so that business can create employment. What Premier Makhura said is in no way contradiction to that. He did indicate that government needs to work together with business to engineer an environment in which jobs can be created. If you listen carefully to his State of the Province address, he indicated that, or tried to outline the role of government as well as the role of business. I think one example of such the different roles was that of bulk infrastructure, which falls squarely on government, on government's doorstep. But there's not necessarily a contradiction. I think what the president failed to do in his SONA, he failed to expand on that comment or remark that was contained in the SONA that caused a lot of confusion. But in essence, that's the role of government, to create a conducive environment for right.
Yeah, and speaking of this conducive environment, no doubt for some of us who do indeed live in this economic hub of Gauteng, there's certainly some challenges, and some of them are very clearly visible. But let's talk about some of the challenges that it seemed like a positive speech. I mean, of course, he's talking about the state of the province, and of course, it would seem like he'd want to paint a good picture. But there's no doubt that there are challenges, and let's talk about those challenges that he would then be facing if he indeed would be turning this province around. And let's not forget that he has been, in this position for quite some time. So this should have been a long planned out thing.
I think David Makhura has served as Premier for about 8 years now.
Yeah.
He speaks of certain challenges, self-created emergency, in my view, about an economic and service delivery emergency. It's not like the pandemic caused all the challenges that exist within the province of Gauteng. What the pandemic did was to accelerate that decline in terms of service delivery provision. You'd remember that one of the municipalities that's a sore side is the Mfuleni municipality.
Yeah.
The Mfuleni municipality became dysfunctional way before the COVID-19 pandemic. And we saw failure from the provincial government to take action with regards to that, which was lack of consequence management from the provincial government side.
Yeah.
Besides that, the dynamics of our state are also present at provincial level. I mean, we have what we can essentially call a party state. The dynamics of the party end up influencing the dynamic of the state. The decline in the ANC, whether in terms of intellect or in terms of capabilities, tend to affect the party. And this unfolds through various ways: cronyism, cadre deployment, patronage, something that has led to our municipalities being in the state that they find themselves in. For instance, the PPE corruption saga that we saw during the early onset of COVID-19 pandemic in Gauteng, that indicated a lapse in governance systems within the province of Gauteng.
Yeah.
And that in itself speaks of the quality of personnel within those institutions of government that were implicated, whether it's the Department of Health or the Department of Education.
Yeah, and then there's the issue that's becoming quite a sticking point in Gauteng, and that's the issue of illegal immigrants in the province. And I would have thought that he would have spoken quite more extensively on this particular issue, given that this also caused what will I say? It caused problems for the ruling party, in that Action SA came in and made this their cause, adopted it as their cause, and by the numbers of Gautengers who then gave their vote to Action SA due to their stance on the issue of illegal immigrants, one would think that this would be an issue that would be really dealt with. What are your thoughts on how Makhura is or should be dealing with this particular issue?
I think the Premier touched on it briefly.
Yeah.
When he said that Gauteng is not opposed to foreign nationals being present within the region. They would actually prefer that foreign nationals come to the country, in the province, legally, and they're also open to refugees coming into the province as long as they come through legal channels. But on the issue of foreign nationals, remember that in 2008, the first spate of xenophobic attacks that South Africa has experienced in post-apartheid South Africa actually started in Johannesburg, the Gauteng province itself.
Yeah.
That was an indication that already back then, this is about 14 years ago, there was already a challenge with illegal immigrants in the country. And I think what the governing party has done, it failed to deal decisively with that issue and tried to sweep the issue under the carpet. But that speaks directly to the inability of law enforcement agencies to enforce the law. I mean, the laws are there.
Yeah.
South Africa is open to all people of all nationalities. The laws must just be applied. The laws must just be enforced. Also, the corruption levels that are prominent at the Department of Home Affairs has also contributed to the state that we have. But what we see in terms of the rise of movements such as Operation Tudula, it's relative deprivation and social discontent growing amongst citizens in the country, especially where we have rising high level of unemployment and rising inequalities and poverty. The discontent is bound to manifest itself in the manner that we see it currently unfolding.
Yeah, and just on a different note, just to wrap up our conversation, I know my team's telling me to wrap up, but it is something quite important. I want to talk about David Makhura's political career, the ANC elective conference coming up in December. Where do you see Makhura emerging? I mean, there was news, of course, about the fact that David Makhura said that he had been approached to replace Ace Magashule as the ANC Secretary General, and this, of course, would be a very interesting move if it were to happen. But do you see that as a possibility? I mean, anything is possible really when it comes to the ANC, but do you think that this is something that would or could and is likely to happen?
What I can say, Flo, is that David Makhura will find himself in the ANC's NEC come December.
Yeah.
His time in the provincial ANC politics is kind of done. One of the funny things that happened during the SOPA today, the only politician to get if I may say, shout out in his State of the Nation, or rather State of the Province address, was Panyaza Lestufi, who Makhura is believed to be begging to succeed him as the provincial ANC chairperson. So Makhura has thrown his weight behind Panyaza Lestufi, and is hoping to get a place in the NEC of the ANC come December. But I don't see him emerging in the top 6 of the ANC.
All right, interesting indeed. Thanks very much, and I hope we can have more conversations on this and more other issues. Thanks very much for giving us your time here on SABC News, Matlala.
Thank you, Flo.
All right, that is Matlala Setlhalogile, political analyst, weighing in on SOPA, the State of the Province address by David Makhura, Premier David Makhura today.